There's a time coming when those who own gold and silver will throw it in the streets, it says, and throw it to the bats and the moles. You have to understand where that fits. There are Adventist friends who don't know where that fits, and they think that belongs to right now. No, it doesn't belong to right now. Ellen White says, hoarded wealth will soon be worthless. That fits two places. A great amount of means will be as nothingness then. There's a time coming when if you've got the money, it does you no good. You either have to take the mark or you can't spend it. Are you listening? That's down the road. That's not immediate. That's not now. You and I are in a very awkward position, but a reasonably good position right now. In that there's still a little bit of time to do something. Oh, well, let's go buy gold and silver. If you've got enough dough, yes. If you don't, I read you the statement, let every man be wide awake for himself and his family. And do what he can. Try to save himself and his family. Try. No guarantee you're going to make it. If you'll pray about every step you take and make, I believe God will direct you. I believe that. Now let's talk about this money situation so that you understand what I believe. I believe no one is going to be saved and get through to the kingdom and get their gold and silver on the flight to heaven. Ridiculous. Who needs it anyhow? They pave the streets with gold up there. We're not there. We're not in the final 3.5. So we're at least 3.5 years away from this. We're down here. I believe there's 2 to 3 years in here. Why? Because there are 7 last years in sanctuary time. But we're talking about an additional 12 months. I don't know how to say some of these things without offending people, and I have no desire to offend anyone. No one. I have met hundreds of thousands of Adventist Christians. For 36, going on 37 years, I've been traveling all over several continents. There are very few Adventists out of the hundreds of thousands that I met who either believe or see and say what I'm going to share with you. I try to remind people of something that Ellen White said, which I buy 1,000%. She said, some, parentheses people, some are so heavenly minded, they are no earthly good. Well, what does that mean? Well, I see that you're living where you're living, and you and your family could be placed in a very unfavorable position if the economy goes this way. If the government can't send checks at the first of the month and folk are hungry, they may be looking in your pantry, in your backyard. Oh no, God will take care of us. Is it possible God is taking care of you by telling you ahead of time to get out of Dodge? It's amazing how many people don't believe that you have anything to do with it. That God's just going to step in and I'm a good guy and my family, we're good people and God's going to take care of the matter. I hardly know what to say to that kind of reasoning. When I was 7 years old, 6, 7, 8 years old, I was in the 1st and 2nd grade, elementary school. Recess time, you go in the restroom, and here's some of your classmates hiding over in the corner, 3, 4, 5 of them puffing on a cigarette. And they see me and they say, "Come on, have a puff." No thanks. If they keep puffing, what are their chances of living as long as my life? Come on. Did they shorten their lives by choices they made? Am I lengthening my life, maybe, by choices I make? Don't tell me there's nothing you can do or should do about your future, your well-being. I believe God does take care of us. Give some of us a little bit of common sense, a little bit of time, a little bit of money to do something. So where we are right now is what I call the hedging time. What does hedging mean when you're talking about money? I've got money, but it's just green ink on white paper, and everybody knows that party is almost over. As a matter of fact, it is over as of 3.5 weeks ago, but nobody wants to tell you that. What does hedging mean? I've got ink on paper, and right now, some folk will take that ink on paper and give me something that is substantial, that is real, right now. So right now, if I have $500 or $5,000 or $1,000 over here, it's just, emergency money. I can take that ink on paper and I can get $1,000 worth of silver, which is the real deal stuff, guys. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? And that may not be possible tomorrow or Monday. I'm sincerely sincere. Come Monday, that may not be possible to give your green ink on white paper and get something real back. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. This is the time to hedge. Well, hedging is not just about money. Right now, I can take some of this ink on paper and I can go to the hardware store or the Home Depot or the Myers or whatever, and I can say, I want 2 hoes, H-O-E-S. I want 2 rakes. I want an axe. I want 2 shovels. And they're going to give them to me for green ink on white paper. And I say, man, that's a good deal right there. Now, what am I going to do with those tools? Come on. Now, right now, you're not worrying about a victory garden. I told you about the first time my wife and I tried to garden. If we had to live off that, we'd have been dead in 3 months. No. But there's a day coming in which those who have taken their families away from the cities into rural districts where the houses are not crowded closely together, where they can grow something to eat, will live like kings and queens. I'm quoting. I didn't write the script. Someone else did. Hard times are coming. By and by, I'm going to put something on the screen, and it will be unfriendly to Michiganders. I just don't want to live this close to the North Pole, guys. You can grow 1 garden a year here, and they grow some nice stuff here. We can grow 3 gardens in a year. Full gardening cycle. Okay? And there are certain seeds that I can buy right now for pennies. They will take my green ink on white paper and actually sell me real garden seed. And I have a list from experience. I have a list of these seed are non-hybrid. These seed are, and they're the cheapest seed you can go and buy in the seed store because they haven't been fancified. And I know, even if I live this far north, I know what I can grow and eat with non-hybrid seed, and I can stay alive and keep my family alive and maybe 2 or 3 other families on a garden in the growing season I have in some parts of Michigan. You understand what I'm saying? I honestly believe, because remember, I go back to the Second World War, and as a child I can remember the neighbor 2 houses away from us. Man comes home from working at U.S. Iron and Steel. And he's out in the backyard with his little wheel hoe and his hoe and whatever. And he is growing a victory garden, it was called. And he and his family had fresh food. You understand? My dad couldn't make a turnip. Now, there are practical things that can be done right now. Right, I'm talking about the little bit of squeeze time right here. Because November is rushing at us, and November is the election. And that is going to change this country. And whoever is elected president in November doesn't take office until and Daniel 4, as we'll see shortly, says at the end of 12 months, he was walking in his palace, and he said, "Is not this great that I have promised, that I have built, that I have?"
Are you sure that's not Obama? Seriously? That's saying that?
You know, it says at the end of 12 months, he was walking in his palace. I decided, yeah, no kidding.
Obama?
Yeah, you sure that's not Obama?
And he is not content with 28 floors of gold. He went and beat the politicians and built it 78 floors of gold. You need to understand what's going on. People never recognize prophecy fulfilling while it's fulfilling. I went and looked it up. I could not believe my eyes. At the end of 12 months, he was walking in his palace. And he said, "Is not this great? We're going to make America again." I looked up palace. This is what it says in the root word. Are you listening?
Yes.
The great public house. You figure out which great public house that is. As far as I'm personally concerned, if I had some extra dough, which I don't, I'd entertain a few silver shekels. On any day now, at any moment now. We're going to see new money in the U.S. Ellen White, almost 150 years ago, said, "There will come a change in the circulating currency." And from what was shown me, it is the device of Satan for the last days. This change that is already in the works, it just hasn't been announced to you yet. When this change occurs, this is the first shot across the bow for the New World Order. There's new money, and shortly thereafter, there will be a global currency reset, GCR. And supposedly 220 currencies from nations around the world are from that moment forward going to be asset-backed. What does that mean? It means you can't just go print money and pawn it off on people. You'll be asset-backed. The preferred asset is gold. Now, the United States does not have enough. because we have owed trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And we have hidden that indebtedness. We think it's only 18 or 19 trillion. Oh, don't we wish? When you get the derivatives and all the other things that are to be loaded in, and they're there. There's no way. So what you have to do is you have to change the value of gold and silver. It is the United States, it is the Federal Reserve, it is the International Monetary Fund. We go back to the First and Second World War, and you had to set an established fixed value for gold per ounce. Up until that time, it had been $20 an ounce for 50, 60, 80 years, way back into the 1800s. But now we're coming up with a new system, and we need more money, so what we do is raise the value of gold, 1 ounce of gold, from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce. And then we multiply all of this according to the way fractional banking works. We multiply it times 10. And that's not enough money because the war is over and nations are trying to rebuild and we've got to get more money into the system. And so what we do is leave it at $35 an ounce until 1971, I think it was, when Nixon was in the White House. And it wasn't enough. We had promised to give gold and silver for U.S. currency up until that time. President Nixon announced to the whole world that the United States would no longer give gold and silver for its currency. Some of you are old enough to remember silver certificates, and some of you are old enough to remember gold certificates. It wasn't just green ink on white paper. It had gold or silver to back it up. Well, Uncle Sam was broke. Uncle Sam is broker. Uncle Sam is broke-ed. But you hide it with a shell game. Did you see that thing on YouTube recently? They had a cat and a guy playing a shell game with that cat. The cat won every time. Every time. You can't move faster than the cat's eyes and the cat's paws. Every time. It's amazing. Did you see that? No. You need to go on YouTube and look it up. Here's a shell game. There are 3 walnut shells, and under one there's real money. Now we shovel them all around, and you have to guess which one has the real money. And they get people, it's really amazing to watch people do this, and every time they turn it over, there's no money. And so they shuffle all over again. They turn it over, there's no money. And after about 50 tries, there's no money. Then they turn all 3 over and there's no money. You understand? Yeah. But you tricked the mind. And people kept playing the game. And that's all it is a game. Just a game. It's a shell game. So where we are now with the global currency reset, which is going to demand that all currencies which are acceptable for trade and purchase and business in the international markets will be asset-backed. The preferred asset is gold. But if you listen to Bo Polney, he says, hey, silver's going to go up 5 times. The gentleman that I mentioned a few moments ago, he said, let me tell you, if you got friends who bought some silver, tell them don't sell the silver. Don't get rid of the silver. It's going to go to 50, then it's going to go to 250, and who knows where it's going to go. Gold is going to go to 2,000, then it's going to go to 3,000, and when it goes to 3,000, the general public will not be allowed to buy it anymore. Are you listening? So if you look at the amount of debt that's on the books around the world today, at some point it's going to go to 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, maybe 50,000. Doesn't matter. I'm not in that league. I can't play those games. That's not it. Right now I have a concern. Our little ministry has been in existence since 1988. We filed with the government. We got the recognition. They audited us and they said, you're doing sound business. And so we have been in business for 36 years. Now, for 36 years, we have had 2 bank accounts. We're not talking about 2 sets of books. We're talking about 2 bank accounts. This bank account pays the light bill and the water bill, the utilities, the business of the month. You understand? And that includes employees, salaries, this kind of thing. So that's your day-to-day account right there. The other one, you can call it a money market account or whatever it is, but that's where we keep the funds for printing. Because when you're going to go print books, you're talking about a chunk of change. And so you don't eat your seed corn. Are you listening? So we have been living and doing wonderfully well for 36 years. But I knew the day would come. The day will come when most of your support base has gotten old and feeble and on Social Security. And they will all write you nice, friendly notes and say, "Oh, Brother Wheeling, I wish I could do more, but I don't got no more." You understand? Now that day will come. And when it comes, you have to decide whether you're going to live by faith or not. And living by faith is not fun. Nobody ever said it would be, but living by faith is not fun. But living by faith tells you where you are in the stream of prophetic time. So, I could say to you, and I will in a little while, here's a piece of paper. If you want to make a gift today, make a gift. It's desperately needed. As of the end of this month, no more seed corn. That account is gone. You listening? It's gone. First time it's ever happened to us in 36 years. We'll make it through the end of the month. My position is, if God wants this ministry to continue, He will feed it. He will nurture it. He will take care of it. When the Lord said, "This is what I want you to do," my answer to the Lord was, "I don't want to do it." I said no 3 times. I'm so glad God doesn't know how to spell no. I said, "No, I don't want to do it." Why? Because I know where it's going to go. They're going to throw me out of the church, which they did. And Lord, you know I don't like to ask people for money. And the Lord's answer was good then. It has been good every day since, and it will be good until. The answer was, if I can keep the sun and moon from bumping into one another, I can pay the light bill and I go to work. You listening? So when we got on our knees and God said, "I want you to put books in prisons and jails from one end of this country to the other and beyond." We said, "Well, to start this program, take $10,000, Lord. If you want us to do this, you send the $10,000. Got off our knees in my living room and walked to the mailbox at my house. And there's a little 6 3/4 envelope. Charles Wheeling, Jemison, Alabama. Never heard of the person who sent it. Have never, to my knowledge, ever met them. Brother Wheeling, the Lord impressed me to send these funds at this time. God bless you. $10,000. Do you understand? Do you understand? Your faith. Well, we're coming to that time again. No. We're coming to a time much larger than that. Much larger than that. Now, we'll talk about us and money a little later on. I want to talk to you about this and this, because this is any moment and this is imminent shortly thereafter. Now, prayerfully, this is going to be that moment of grace in which God is going to stretch the time a little bit for us. The little bit appears to be from now till election time and at least 12 months. Because at the end of 12 months, whoever this person is walking in the palace, the great public house, and says, "Is not this the great that I have built?" And a watcher and a Holy One in heaven said, "Cut the tree down. Hew the tree down." And Howard Hughes went insane. That's 1 year, 12 months off of 2 terms. And let 7 times pass over him while he's groveling in the field with the rest of the donkeys and jackasses and whatever. Let 7 times pass over him. So he is out of, let's just say, his element. But life goes on. And the U.S., us, will become a 3rd or 4th world nation. And you have to understand why. No, you don't have to understand why. You just have to understand when it's no longer lawful to have a Bible in school, a prayer in school. I had a personal conversation with a U.S. military chaplain, and he said, "We're not even allowed to use the name Jesus Christ." No. What's the saying when you're a kid? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Yeah. That's where we are. We're over the edge. It's insanity all the way. So if you've got a inkling and a little chunk of change in your pocket, you may want to find somewhere else to live. You may. Because this nation is a target. This is the last bastion of Protestantism on the planet. This is the nation that Satan has to bring down. We're going to be a special target. For 7 years, it's going to go from bad to worser. Publications, I'm quoting her. Heaven has given abundant light that publications containing present truth should be printed and sent everywhere. So this is where we are. This is where I am. This is where our little ministry is. This is where we are. If this becomes a reality right here, then some of those folk who made an investment and bought these exotic foreign currencies, when you could still do that, I don't think you can do that anymore. And if those currencies reset on the new standard, then maybe if they keep giving us some of this currency to exchange when the time comes, maybe we can print millions of books. I mean millions of books. I mean millions and millions and millions of books. And that seems to be in the works. But that means it's not reality yet. Not yet. This may buy us not only books, but a little time. Just a few minutes, and then we're going to put some giveaways in your hands. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was not only a pagan heathen king, he was favored by God in Daniel chapter 2, and here he is being favored again a second time. And it looks like Nebuchadnezzar is going to be converted while he's insane. Or at the end of his insanity, anyhow. So the king has a dream, and Daniel is summoned because he is in touch, it says, with the holy gods. Now, if you're not well enough read in the book of Daniel, the 4th chapter of Daniel was written by, not Daniel, by Nebuchadnezzar himself. He takes the credit repeatedly. Daniel comes in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And he says, the king says to him, Belteshazzar, because I know the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no secret troubles you, tell me the visions of my dream. And how did Daniel respond to that? He said, see you later, king. Thanks, but no thanks. I don't want to tell you. This is what you saw. This is what I saw, Nebuchadnezzar says. A tree in the midst of the earth. So what are we going to do? We're going to dig a hole down to the middle of the earth and we're going to plant a tree there. No, that doesn't work. What in the world is this saying? What information is being conveyed? Water, water. Land, 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 land. This is in the midst of the earth. A tree in the midst of the earth. The height of it was great. It grew. It was strong. The height of it reached to heaven. The sight thereof to the end of all the earth. The leaves were fair. The fruit thereof much. Meat for all. The beasts of the field had shadow under it. The fowls of heaven dwelt in the boughs thereof. And all flesh was fed of it. That's why for most of my life, since World War II ended, anywhere on the planet, there was a crisis, an earthquake, a flood, whatever it was. There came the ships, and there came the planes, and there came the bags. Product of the USA. We have fed, clothed, and kept the world. Now there's a gentleman running for president now, and he says we can't afford to do that anymore. I would tend to agree with that. I would tend to agree. All flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions, behold, a watcher and a holy one came down from heaven, cried aloud and said, hew down the tree, cut off the branches, shake off the leaves, scatter the fruit, let the beasts get away from under it and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of it and the roots in the earth, even with a band of iron and brass. That's another discussion. Let his portion be with the beasts and the grass of the earth. Let the dew of heaven be on him. That's called latter rain. So, let his heart be changed from a man, and let a beast's heart be given to him, and let 7 times pass over him. So basically, you have 7 last years. Understanding that in Bible time it's not 7 years to the day and the hour. You understand that? And you have 12 months. So that would be 2 terms. If there's any light at all, if there's any part of what we're even thinking and questioning and saying and observing if there's any light in it at all, then you and I may be as close as 8 years from the kingdom, from Jesus coming. Now, I don't know how it is with you, but I'm 74 now, and every year that goes by, the clock ticks faster, not slower. I mean, the body moves slower, but the clock ticks faster. I don't know if anyone else has observed this phenomenon. Yes. Yeah. We are very close, very near the end. But obviously there are many things yet to take place prophetically before Jesus will come. Now I'm concerned about this 3.5 years at the beginning. Why am I concerned? Because when the Lord spoke to my heart, spoke to me, I heard an audible voice. I will tell you, I heard an audible voice. And the Lord said, I want you to start an independent publishing ministry. Lord, I've never done anything. I don't even know where to begin. Besides that, I don't like to ask people for money, and that sounds like a bunch of money to me. So God made it very clear, very clear, as to what I was supposed to do. Now, some of you are old enough to remember Joe Cruz. You have to go back a long way. Joe Cruz and I were friends for quite some time. And while I was still in the employ of the Southwestern Union Conference doing evangelism with Dan Collins, who was the union evangelist, while I was still there, the Lord spoke to me and said, this is what I want you to do. And among the things He said He wanted me to do was to call Joe Cruz, because the union committee had met and they said, we don't have any more money. We've got too many bills in other places, so we can't keep this evangelistic program, pioneer evangelism, going. And the voice said, I want you to call Joe Cruz. And I said, no. I have never called and asked anybody for a call, a job. I want you got to open the way. You've got to make that way. That's not a man-made deal. I'm not going to call Joe. I could, but I'm not. Now this went on for 3 weeks. Call Joe Cruz. Call Joe Cruz. Call Joe Cruz. No. Finally, on the 3rd week, on a Sunday morning at the breakfast table, moping with the phone rang. It was Bill May. He was my big boss in the union office out in Texas. He said, Charles, this is not working and you know it. They're not going to give us enough money to keep things going. Listen, I want you to call Joe Cruz. He's at this number. I called him. I said, hi, Joe. Charles, is this you? Yeah, it's me. Where are you, Joe? I'm in Ohio. Man, I've been trying to find you for 3 weeks. Where are you? Do you understand? If God wants something done, He can make known what He wants done. If God wants something done, He can bring the people He wants together to get it done. Are you listening? I'll take the story and abbreviate it. Joe said, get on a plane, get up here, we got to talk. Joe, I've got to tell you something. Get on the plane, we'll talk when you get here. All right. So I got there and I listened to Joe. Man, we need you in a bad way. We got more people wanting more meetings than we can hold in 5 years. We need you right now. I said, Joe, okay, but I got to tell you this. The Lord told me to print books first, and I cannot lay that aside. I'm just telling you in front. I cannot lay that aside. You mean you're not going to give whole heart everything to Amazing Facts? I said, Joe, You know I love Amazing Facts. You know I love you. But the Lord told me to do something, and I have to do it. But when I'm not doing that, I'll go and I'll take evangelistic meetings, and I'll do whatever and whatever and whatever. Oh man, he says, I don't know if the board will buy that. I said, well, let me tell you what I think the board will buy. I'm not asking for Amazing Facts to pay the salaries for me and my buddies. We'll be responsible for our own salaries. Joe says, let me see if I got this right. You're going to work, and we're not going to pay you. I said, it's not a problem, Joe. The Lord promised me. The Lord told me that He would make the way. I'll take it to the board. I don't know, brother. I've never heard of anything like this before. So he called me 3 days later and he said, the board says if you're willing to work with no pay, except whatever's in your account, okay. So for 2.5, almost 3 years, we never missed a paycheck. Never. At the end of 2.5, almost 3 years, Joe called and he said, man, the board, they got to have you full time. You just got to drop that book thing and do this full time. I said, Joe, I can't do it. Well, we've got to hire another man. I said, I understand. That's fine. But I know what the Lord told me to do, and I have to do it. Oh, man, he says, this is really hard. I don't know what to tell you. I said, there's no apologies. There's no excuses. There's nothing. I said, you're doing what you need to do. I'm doing what I need to do. So meanwhile, we've been in contact with Inspiration Books out in Phoenix, Arizona, a little layman's group. Could tell you that story. I don't think you want to hear it. And we drove all the way out to Phoenix and sat down with their board and said, brethren, the Lord's called us to do a book publishing ministry, to print the books as cheaply, as affordably as possible, and scatter them like the leaves of autumn. Well, that's what we're all about. I said, I know. That's why we have come all the way out here to sit down with you and explain to you what vision the Lord has given us. And we're asking to buy 5 pallets of your titles, 5 different pallets of your books. Oh man, that sounds good. I said, but we don't have any money to pay for them. Well, let's see if we understand this. You want to buy, but you've got nothing to buy with. Is that the federal government or is that the federal government? So we said, look, this is what we want to do. If you will trust us with 5 pallets, 5 different titles of the books, as we can promote and sell them, every time we sell a case or cases of books, we will send you the money that is yours. And it was one of these, raise your right hand. And so I get a phone call from Phoenix, Arizona. Said, Brother Wheeling, just want you to know the board met. We've talked this over. There's a bit of hesitation, but we are shipping you the 5 pallets of books. I said, praise the Lord. And I'd never stopped to think about who's going to pay for the shipping. And not too many days hence, I got a phone call from a shipping firm, a truck firm, and they said, is this so-and-so, and are you at this address, so-and-so and so-and-so? Yes. Well, we have 5 pallets, and we'll be there on Wednesday, and the bill is $1,536. Now, this is Monday, and they're coming on Wednesday, and our bank balance is 0. What would you do? You've only got 1 bullet left. What would you do? What would you do? Lord? I get a phone call within that day or the next from the secretary at Amazing Facts. Dear sister, I can't even recall her name. Lovely lady. Brother Wheeling, Joe wanted me to call you. It seems that when you and your men separated, we didn't have all the balances in, and you have some money left in your account here, and I want you to know I mailed you the check. $1,536. Do you understand? The same God that's telling this story, this account, is the same God. And it came to pass at the end of 12 months when he was walking in the great public house. He said, "Is not this the great that I have done?" And a watcher and a holy one said, "Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given to him. Let 7 times pass over him, to the intent the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men." I mean, this guy has such a rough about him. Well, we can't have that man in the White House. We can't have that man talking like that to our children on the news. We can't. We can't. So this is, I could keep going all the way through Daniel 4. I'll tell you where it ends. At the end of 7 years, his mind came back to him. And the Most High ruleth in the heavens. So I'm going to say it again. There's a very real possibility that you and I and this world are about 8 years away from the kingdom. Maybe. I can't guarantee any of it. But this is worth the read, folks. This is worth the praying and the consideration and the digging. There's something going on here much larger than you and me and us, and something going on here. There's a little window right here. Now, my wife and I have been living on preacher's salary and left, so we're not flush with the dough. But if we weren't already living in the country and weren't already gardening and weren't already, you understand what I'm saying? I would be looking for a travel trailer or motorhome or something, so that if I had to move for whatever reason, I could have a roof over my head and my family. I would consider it. And besides that, the economy is such that most of these things are sitting on the side of the road with big for sale signs on them. And folk are selling them for a fraction of what they pay. A fraction. I don't know. I believe in practical religion, folk. When I say to the Lord, "Lord, I don't like to ask for money," and He promises to send the money, then I accept that. I accept that promise. And He has not failed. Whatever you give as a gift to support the ministry, wonderful. That's wonderful. I will tell you at the personal level, this is personal now, at the personal level, if you have not made any real, genuine effort to make some preparation for what could happen sooner than later, I would rather you go buy that hoe and rake. I'm very sincere about this. We can spend all the money you can give and more. That's not the issue. The issue is time. 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 And it is very possible before this new week is done, you and I will be introduced to the new money at the banks. Very possible. If that occurs, I hope you will not go away from this place and fail to recognize that that is a prophetic signal. This is not of the devising of God, the changing of the circulating currency. I saw it was one of Satan's devices for the last days. And what will it affect? It will create hardship, especially for the poor. And I don't know about you, but I'm in the poor category. Listen, if this occurs, please remember what we said today here. That this is one of those early signals that a change is coming. There will be a change with the GCR, the Global Currency Reset. There are indicators this week that this process has already begun outside of the U.S. Once the global currency reset occurs, there will be, please listen, there will be an infusion of trillions of dollars into the global economy. This is a last kick the can down the road event. It will be global, it will be international, and it will bring us to Ellen White's statement in Great Controversy where she says, when all are looking forward to many years of worldly prosperity, suddenly as the lightning flashes from the heavens will come the end of their bright visions and delusive hopes. Paul says over in the New Testament, and when they shall say peace and what?
Prosperity.
It actually says in the Greek, when they shall say or cry peace and prosperity, sudden destruction comes. Sudden downfall. Sudden. Now, for those of you who have been with us, we've talked again and again and again about a trigger event. So, there's a new world order, and there's some trigger event that brings on 7 years of insanity. 7 years of poverty. So this is going to go up, and when all are looking forward to, suddenly, as the lightning flashes, suddenly. So if you're reading the signals, you've got a small window here and you've got a larger window here to do whatever it is you're going to do. Now I have listened to the laments of hundreds and hundreds of Adventist brothers and sisters. We have no money. Let me tell you who has money. God.
Amen. Amen.
And Jesus said, you have not because you didn't ask. And Ellen White again and again and again and again says, ask God for what you need. I saw, and you're going to have all the statements in that folder right there, that God has places for His people. I believe that. I could say a whole lot more on that account. Now, I want to just do this, get your information on here, whether you ever put a penny in it or not. I need an up-to-date on how to find you, if we need to find you, and if you need to get anything we have to offer.
Under what heading do we write it?
IBE or Mission World. Mission World is great. All right? I'm going to tell you a true story, true account. It's in Volume 4 of the Testimonies if you ever want to look it up. The church had been in existence for a few years, a few decades. And the conference in a certain place was, like all organizations, deciding it needed more money. And so members of the members of the conference, and especially workers in the conference, were being, I'll say, encouraged by the brethren in positions of influence, namely the conference president, to be sure to pay their tithes to the conference. And somehow it slipped out. I don't know how these things get out, but somehow it slipped out, and the conference president, I won't say where, but in Colorado, discovered that one Ellen G. White was not sending her tithe to the conference. She was deciding on her own where to send it. And the conference president was prepared to lower the boom. And this was her reply. Are you listening? Are you ready? Brother, and she called his name, if you don't be quiet, others are going to find out what I'm doing and they're going to do the same. I love it. I love it. When our little ministry was in the formative stages, we had good, dedicated Adventist friends who would show up, and they've got a check, but they're not sure they want to give it to you yet. And they, now, Brother Wheeling, are you going to say to your staff they have to pay their tithes and offerings to the ministry? No. Well, Brother Wheeling, are you going to go and open every refrigerator and see who has mustard and ketchup in the refrigerator? No. Well, in Norway, it was, they came in, they have the habit of coming into a meeting over there and putting their offering in the basket the moment they come in. And as soon as I said something they didn't like, they all got up, marched out, and grabbed their offering out of the basket on the way. I love it. I absolutely love it, because there are people who seriously believe that they were giving me the money. Anyhow, my point with you is this. If you can, on a monthly basis, on a whatever basis, support us, wonderful. We promise to spend the money. All right? But if you have not done serious accounting, as I read a few moments ago in here, it is time for the men to take account for themselves and their families and get on their knees before God and say, Lord, show us what to do, because when this comes down, it's coming down. And that's capital D, down. And nothing is going to be easy thereafter. Nothing. All right, take a few moments. This is a prayer request. Place on the envelope. E-News, which comes to you free of charge. Nothing. We don't share your name or sell it. You're not going to get spammed by us or from us. And the community mailing means that if you don't know about our plan to publish 103 million copies of The Perfect Storm, which is a 90-page abridgment of the great controversy. If you don't know about our plan, the prayer is there that the Lord will send us the funds to print 103 million and pay to post them to every residential address in the United States and Canada. We already know how many we got to buy, how many we have to print.